All right, folks. Well, good morning. My name is John Lohman. I am the publisher of the Corridor Business Journal, and I want to welcome you to our Meet the New CBJ Editor Zoom. With the COVID, of course, impacting all of our lives, we tried to think of a way to best get Becky introduced or reintroduced to some folks here in the corridor. And normally what we would do is we would take Becky around and meet with people individually as much as possible. But obviously due to the COVID, that's not going to work as well as it has in the past. And so we thought we'd put together this Zoom so people can get an opportunity to, again, meet Becky and talk a little bit about her news philosophy and how people can best engage with the CBJ. So I think we've got close to 100 people that signed up for this Zoom today, so welcome. I'd like to make sure you're all muted, but if you do have questions for Becky, I'll try to facilitate those. So you can just type those questions into the chat section at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll do our best to get to as many of those questions as possible. I assume most of you are familiar with the CBJ, but my wife and I, just as a little bit of a background, we launched the CBJ about 17 years ago in our basement in North Liberty, and it has really grown over the years to become a really trusted news institution up and down the corridor, so something we're very proud of. And we've got a team of about 15 employees. Most of them have been working remotely since the COVID. I am in our world headquarters in North Liberty right now, and Becky, I think she's at her house in Marion. But we're really excited about bringing Becky on the CBJ. She started with us in January. She's one of the most experienced news executives in the entire corridor, maybe the entire state, and she's really bringing a lot to the CBJ, and she's going to help transform the news content and the process and the overall news flow of the CBJ to a whole new level. Becky, as probably many of you know, who've been around the corridor for a while, has been a news director and a senior leader at the Gazette. She's been in the news business for nearly 30 years, starting out in Wisconsin, where she grew up, and then coming to Iowa almost 20 years ago. She was with KCRG as news director, and then she was a senior director of information content at the Gazette. And then she did a 2-year stint with Diversity Focus as their senior director of communications and media affairs. And then most recently, she was news director for KG and KFXA in Cedar Rapids. And again, many of you probably know her. She's been in downtown Rotary in Cedar Rapids for many years as well. So she's a known quantity, but she's new to the CBJ. When I heard that she was available, I called her right away, and it just worked out that she was able to join the CBJ. She does live in Marion, as I mentioned, with her husband Scott, and they have 2 teenage boys, and so they're busy with those boys, and we're really excited about having her on board. And so I thought what I would do now is have her talk a little bit more about herself, her background, her overall approach to news, and then maybe the best way for you folks to engage Becky and the CBJ. If you've got a press release or you have a news item that you'd like to share with the CBJ, she can talk a little bit about that. And again, if you got any questions for Becky or for myself, you can type that into the chat section, and we'll do our best to get as many of those questions as possible. And we'll just try to keep this as an open exchange with Becky and all of you folks. So Becky, thanks for being with us. I'll let you take it from here.
Well, thank you, John. Very excited to be here and to be part of this amazing group. As somebody who has been in media for, as John said, almost 30 years, I absolutely love the fact that I can stay here in Iowa and continue to do my passion and my love, which is journalism and sharing stories. And so, going back, it is kind of appropriate that I ended up at the Business Journal, and that's at CBJ and the business news opportunities. I mean, really, when I think back on it, I grew up in a household that owned a small business. And so from the time I was, I think, 4 or 5 till I could reach a cash register on a stool, actually, at that time, my parents owned a small business and they owned a small pharmacy. And so very, very used to, owning a business and certainly a small business and the importance of those businesses to our communities. Loved journalism, was passionate about really working in journalism, starting in college, and started internships. And went from there, went on and got my master's degree at Missouri, and went to Green Bay after that for 5 years, and I just loved Green Bay. It was kind of one of those nice places, a lot colder, obviously, a lot of snow, but it really learned a lot of leadership skills and certainly media leadership starting back in Green Bay. And at the ripe old age of 28, became a news director, and moved to Michigan and stayed in the Midwest. Midwest was very important to me. And so when I had the opportunity to come to Iowa, it was an amazing transformation. Recently married, we knew we wanted to start a family. I wanted to be someplace that had good schools. And so for us, it really meant coming to a place where we knew we kind of want to put down roots, and we were able to do that and stay. And so it's been quite the ride for 20 years. And I think when I first moved here and recently married and no children and no animals, but fast forward and all the connections and all the things I've been able to do, just an amazing place. And now a chance to really work at a family-owned company was a blessing, and really I'm very excited to be here. Again, passionate about journalism. And so really when you're talking about the types of things that mean something to me, I'm a storyteller at heart, but I really believe that, providing timely and trustworthy, fair and balanced reporting is important, in that we are able to do that, in a place that really has stories that, mean something to you, that touch your heart, that make sure that we are really encompassing all things that are happening here in the corridor, and making sure that you're aware of those trends, those things that are important to you, to your business. And so, going forward, I think really trying to draw those personal connections, I think, is really the biggest part of what we're doing. Really, as I'm looking at this, I know a lot of folks throughout town through various things, but I wanted to let you guys know how to reach us and what we need to do as far as getting some information into the CBJ. Right now we are on, we've got great opportunities as we're expanding what we're doing for content, and making sure that that content is available in a timely manner and across all platforms. So whether that is a website, or making sure that we have social media connections, and certainly our newsletters, which are vitally important. So I wanted to make sure that all of you had access to that. So I wanted you to know that a great way to reach out to the CBJ newsroom, you can do news@corridorbusiness.com. And you'll reach the entire newsroom so that we all can see that. A lot of the content we get, a lot of the news releases that you send, we are able to utilize in one of our newsletters. It may or may not make the print edition of the paper, but at least you know that it's going to have line of sight to our entire reporting staff, and that there may be an opportunity that we can get that into one of our newsletters. And so, but beyond that, we are always looking for great story ideas for bigger stories, things that we can broaden out and put into practice. So I just want to let you know, though, with our publishing schedule. So on Thursdays, by Thursdays, we're in full production for that Monday newspaper. So, more than likely at that point, if you're going to send out a news release, it won't make that print edition, but it certainly could make the newsletter. So if you send that news release earlier in the week, your chances are much higher of getting an opportunity to necessarily make the paper as well. But just knowing that we are always looking for great content, for potential things that we can do internally, But always also looking for guest contributors, people that can really work with us to write columns. We basically have a nice list of different folks throughout the corridor who participate in making sure that their voices are heard. But we have a number of businesses and business owners and folks who are just passionate about what they do that contribute, and we'd love to have more. And the same thing with guest opinion. We basically, again, wealth of knowledge here, and we're always accepting guest opinions for possible publication. So I want to make sure that to either reach out to me or certainly send it into that news email, and we can see if we can get you started. But looking for great content. I want to talk also, I guess, a little bit about our editorial calendar. So one of the things that it's kind of nice, what we work on and what we can do is that we are able to pick throughout the year. Oh, there it is. Throughout the year, these are just the topics. These are different topics for each of our editions, and we can basically talk about that. So it's not that the entire paper is this, but most of our focus would be in that edition on these particular topics. So if there's something there, if we have an upcoming topic area, certainly send us some story ideas of something that might make sense. Your company, something that's new that we can move forward on, working through that. And as you see, we have, our retail edition is coming up soon. We've got food next week. So there's food and agricultural. So take a hard look at this, because again, we have a great opportunity here to really take a hard look at a lot of different things throughout the corridor. And we're always looking for great ideas that really center around those topic areas. So this also can be found on our website under the CBJ's website. So you can also find that editorial calendar if you want to come back to it as well.
Yeah, so Becky, there was one question from the audience and talking about, are we going to be providing more digital content? And maybe can you talk a little bit about, the website that we're working on?
Yeah, it was a great time actually to jump on board with John and the CBJ, because right now, looking at expanding that content offering, we knew we needed a new website. And so, and it was something John had been looking into for some time, but then like the rest of you, the whole pandemic and COVID kind of slowed that down. But we're moving forward very fast right now, trying to get back into this digital world, that all our content is able to be digitized, I guess is a good way to put it. But if we go all digital in a platform that really allows us to be able to share that message, social media, certainly helping out with our newsletters and making sure that content is available wherever you're seeking it, easy to search. And so that is in full. We're going forward with all of that. And as I design that content plan to help support it, it really is all about using all our content, including our podcasts, which have been very successful for us. But we want to make sure that everything is easy to find, easy to use. And so we're right in the middle of that. And we're hoping here that by end of April, beginning of May, that we're going to be in full force and having that brand new website to be able to push out content in a more effective manner.
So Becky, tell everybody a little bit about the news team, how many folks you've got on staff, and what are some of their roles and responsibilities, so just people have a flavor of who's all on your news team.
So, the nice thing about the news team too is that there's a number of folks that, I have known from my past, and some great journalists and some people who really have an eye on what's happening right here in the corridor. And so I think, I think going forward with the small team, but we also have some freelancers as well. So Kathy is our senior reporter, and she, she's been with us for some time. And certainly she's got a ton of connections and things throughout the corridor, but certainly has done a great job in focusing on Johnson County, and also did a fantastic job serving for John as interim editor while I was getting up to speed and able to go forward. So she's been a great resource, somebody, again, a veteran who really has done a great job at being able to provide lots of different story ideas, and certainly that training and teaching for me. Going beyond that, we've got Richard, and Richard, again, somebody that I have worked with in my past. He also, beyond being a very strong reporter and doing some great storytelling and developing some connections, Richard has a great digital background too. So he's going to be critical in our website redesign. And I think that's very important going forward. Angie Holmes is another one of our reporters, but she also works on a lot of the special projects, a lot of the different big things that the CBJ puts out, the Book of Lists, Lure, the magazine Lure. So she does a lot of those special projects as well. We have just a host of freelancers as well that I've been able to go to, and a lot of those folks, again, some people that I have worked with in the past that are regular contributors as well. And so whether that's Steve Rubell, we have Cindy Haddish, Jenny, a number of folks. And so every week, it just depends on what that issue is, what those topics are, but you will see a host of bylines in the CBJ and a host of people who are helping provide the content that you're reading in the newsletters as well.
So Becky, there's a question from the chat. It says, what are your deadlines for your editorial calendar content? How soon in advance do you suggest we reach out to pitch ideas for an upcoming issue?
Well, that's a good question. I always like to say that, the more time that we have to plan, the better off we are. But if you know that there's an issue coming up, if you reach out a couple weeks out, that would be helpful. That we start talking about those additional issues. I'm trying to up that to about 3 weeks out, that we're already starting to say, hey, we know we're having this editorial opportunity coming up. Does anybody have any ideas that they want to start exploring, so that we're out ahead of it? So if you can get it out to me, 2-3 weeks in advance, that would be helpful, because that way it gives that reporter time while they're working on this week's current story that they have due, but it gives them time to kind of do some background to start developing that story. So, as fast as you can get it out to me, I think the opportunity is there that I can help start pre-planning.
So I think we've got a golden opportunity here to maybe dispel some myths about local journalism. Are there any myths out there that you think we could help debunk with this group?
Any myths? Well,
I'm thinking specifically with do you have to buy an ad to get a story in the CBJ or something like that?
No, not at all. That one of the nice things is the content of the CBJ. That's my role. My role is as editor and working with my folks to be independent. It's great to get story ideas. It is helpful that as somebody that may or may not advertise with the CBJ, that you may have a story idea. Certainly, please pass those on. But it has nothing to do with buying an ad. Right now, we want that content. We want great content. And so if we decide that is something that is worth a larger story, or even just a write-up, that is the sole decision of the newsroom. And so we work on that hard, and making sure that the content is what we believe is the right content for the audience that we're trying to serve. So what happens in the print CBJ, could very well be different than what is happening in some of the newsletters that go on, and they may be the same. It really just depends on what we believe is the best fit for the audience that we're serving. But you do not have to buy an ad to get content in either.
Right. And can you talk a little bit about the editorial board, and if somebody wanted to elevate a specific issue from an editorial perspective, what's the best approach for folks to go about doing that?
I've already had some people reach out to me, and I think what's great about that is having that opportunity. If we have that opportunity to sit down, we can sit down with me. We'll have John there certainly, and I'll invite one of our reporters as well, so that we can really be there and work with that person to kind of flesh out, ask the questions that we need to ask to have a broader and better understanding of what's going on. So certainly, if there is something that you'd like us to consider as an editorial board, by all means, reach out to either myself or John, and we can certainly work to set that up for you.
Great. Another question from the group is how do you balance content from new businesses versus existing and small businesses versus medium versus large?
It's a good question, but it is a balance, and you want to make sure though that you're representing all different types of businesses, so you have that broader perspective. Yes, it's great to see the new business because we want to have awareness and know where things are at. But watching, existing business, especially as they continue to find ways to transform themselves, is critical as well. So I think every week it's really talking through not only the types of businesses, but also where they're located. I want to make sure that we're comprehensive across the corridor and that you're also understanding statewide issues as well. So, it's basically taking a look at all our content and doing that balancing act to make sure that we are aware of what's going on and making sure that we're able to represent everything in the different various platforms that we have.
Great. Okay. So we've got an upcoming Women of Leadership series, and I wonder if you might talk a little bit about what you're seeing with that Women in Leadership series coming up. And, we also were awarded several awards last year through our Association of Business Journals, and maybe you can talk about both of those items.
Sure. So the women in leadership. So Kathy, our senior reporter, really brought this to the forefront as we try to find every year something that CBJ wants to get its arms around and really explore on a more in-depth basis. And so this year, we'll be looking at certainly women in leadership roles and having that opportunity to really explore firsthand, what that can be. And so these will be longer form stories. They will go, again, more in depth. And so you'll see that reporting from, both Kathy and Richard going forward. And, I'm excited to see some of these roles. I think they're very excited about the opportunities as well. I was glad when I jumped on board that was what had been chosen, that Kathy had brought that to the forefront. And so excited about having these opportunities to tell these types of stories within the CBJ. And then you asked, well, what was the second part of your question? I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know if you can comment on some of the awards that we won last year, or if you're familiar with all of those or not, Becky.
Well, I'd probably defer more to you. I know I think it was 5, I think total that we had brought home. The nice thing about awards, which might not mean a lot to people outside of this, but the CBJ really has a very solid reputation and amongst its peer groups. The nice thing is within our own industry and within our own business journal opportunities, we're recognized for the fact that we've got a great creative team. The layouts, the display, how we're doing things, our storytelling are all things that these publications recognize our excellence. And what was great about that too is we're, in a lot of respects, a smaller publication in this peer group. But the bottom line is that it was nice to be recognized last year with those awards.
Yeah, we belong to an association of business journals, like many of you in your specific industries. So we belong to one called the Alliance of Area Business Publications, and there are about 50 business journals in that one. You might be familiar with the Des Moines Business Record, or if you're familiar with Crain's Chicago, we're all in that same group. And we won the bronze medal for the best small tabloid in the country. And so we're really proud of the fact of that. We've been doing this for 17 years at the CBJ, and I think our content's just getting better and better, and getting those awards like we did last year really proves that we're doing well. And I think Becky's just going to take us to the next level with that. So we're very excited about that. Becky, another question for you from the audience. As the new editor, what do you see as the most important message story that you want the CBJ to tell and be known for?
Wow, that's going to be a tough one. I think overall, as we're looking at corridor and certainly our business community and from here on out, I joined at a great time in the sense of, right now as everybody's trying to look forward to what we're going to look like after pandemic. I do think the storytelling and the opportunities that we do for expanded coverage need to keep focusing on businesses and where they go from here. Not only we've done all the, hey, how have you handled things, where are you going, but right now, as everybody is looking to the future and how they are going to look at taking those next steps, I think that's going to be an important message going forward on the continued growth and the opportunities that are happening right here in the corridor post-pandemic.
So another question from the audience, and I maybe can handle this one, is do policymakers and educators read the CBJ, and how can you tell? Well, I can tell you that in the corridor, most business and community leaders throughout the Cedar Rapids and Iowa City region read the CBJ. As far as state legislators outside of the corridor, we do have a good handful in Des Moines that read the CBJ as well. So we do have a really good handle on influencing policymakers or them reading the CBJ on a weekly or monthly basis in some respects, because we have all of the Iowa City Chamber members get the CBJ once a month. All members of the Cedar Rapids Metro Economic Alliance get the CBJ once a month, and we also have two home builders associations, one in Lynn County, one in Johnson County. All their members get the CBJ as well. And so we do have a very well broad reach throughout the corridor. So Becky, another question from the group is, any plans for a potential legislative event session where subscribers can interact with our elected leadership, state or local?
Yeah, I don't know that we've really explored that, quite frankly, since, in my time so far, but it would be an interesting dynamic, and especially, going forward as we're looking at those opportunities within the state and legislatively to make sure that we're supporting business. But at this point, I don't know that I've had that conversation with John, but it's a good idea. So thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, I know a couple other business journals have a legislative session, and maybe that's something we should explore. Yeah. So that's a good idea. Another question from the group is, are you doing an issue on alternative energy?
I'm trying to think what we've done in the past and what as I'm getting familiar as I'm looking at that editorial calendar. I think there's probably certainly opportunities for that. The broad focus of that editorial calendar is going to allow, certainly, we know we have an innovation newsletter that goes out, and that we're always looking for opportunities within some of those buckets, I guess I'll call them, to explore those bigger topics. So certainly, that could be one that falls within very much into one of those categories that we could explore on a larger level.
Yeah, and that editorial calendar was put together prior to Becky coming on board, and so that might be something we want to put in the hopper for a possible focus issue for 2022. But as Becky said, that doesn't preclude us from weighing in on that topic, which we probably will throughout this year. So again, folks, other questions, just type them in the message block there, and we'll get to as many of those as possible. Keep them coming. Anything else, Becky? Let's see. Oh, can you talk about our newsletters, signing up for the newsletters and the PM subjects? And then I guess the other thing is, what makes a compelling press release? So those are a couple other questions.
So I'll try to remember all of those. Okay, so the PM newsletters, we do balance, innovation, real estate, and small business. And so those are all, again, topic areas that we can kind of focus those PM newsletters on. Very easy to sign up for them. You can just go to our website and, you can pick out, the nice thing about the newsletters, you can pick out how many you want to receive and that type of thing. If you're only interested in real estate, you can just sign up for that newsletter. But you can also sign up for all of them, or you can sign up for the AM, which is, again, those broader newsletters where we use a lot of our news release information that you provide us to be able to share with everybody about what's kind of going on. And then, the morning rush is just that moment in time where you kind of get a snapshot, a glimpse of kind of what's happening everywhere else. And so, and we're very fortunate within those newsletters to be able to utilize our news partner, KCRG, and some of their news headlines, as well as the weather. And more importantly, we all are, obviously want to know the very latest about weather. But those topic areas, again, fairly broad. I mean, balance, we all need balance, right? We all need balance in life, but health and those types of things. And that's where you're going to see some of your health, your education, those things that really affect you as far as home life goes, and how that transcends obviously into the business world too. And innovation, a broad topic, because a lot of things are innovative and we can really utilize a lot of different types of content within the innovation opportunities, but it also helps us work on startups and things like that, and incubator and all the different things that are happening right here in the corridor. And certainly with real estate and understanding, how things are going on right now within the corridor, and making sure that we have opportunities to show you what's happening, right? People are always curious about what's happening in different places and development and those types of things. And certainly we didn't want to leave out small business, which is so critical to everything that's going on, is certainly a harder hit area in the COVID time period. So, but very easy to sign up for the newsletters. And certainly if you're going to send in the news release, what makes a good news release? We just want all the critical information, right? We want to know what's happening, why it's important. That quote actually from your CEO or the person who's really putting it out there to kind of put everything into context. Really, that kind of brings it home. How is this going to affect people? What's it going to mean to them? That's what makes a great news release, right? Because then we can basically say we know our who, what, when, where, why, and how, but we really have the impact, and that impact is really, I think, what helps us write that news release and then make sure that we can pull that information into one of those newsletters.
Another great question here is, when is the worst time of day to contact you, or when's your crunch time, and when's the best time to contact you?
Yeah, Thursdays are probably not the good day, just because, like I said, we're all very busy. We have a small but just a wonderful staff who really helps, pull things together and on Thursday. So Thursdays are probably not a great day. I would say Mondays and Tuesdays. Even a Friday is really a great day to contact me. I'm pretty open, as far as timing goes. Later in the day is not really as big of an issue on any other day. I'd say just Thursdays, but beyond that, it's if you're going to send out that news release, the earlier in the day you can send that out, the better chance that we're going to be able to utilize that in either a newsletter that day or the next day.
Question on nonprofit business news. How do you envision nonprofit business news connecting to the CBJ's priorities, and what aspects of the nonprofit news would you most like to share with your followers? And while you think about answering that, I would mention that we do publish a giving guide each fall, and that's a great opportunity for nonprofits to kind of showcase their wants and needs each year. So if you haven't seen that, let us know, but that's a great publication. So talk a little bit about nonprofit news.
Well, we know how critical nonprofits are to all of us. I mean, in the corridor in general, and understanding that the work they do and really helping people with whatever concern or need they have. And as somebody obviously who's lived, worked, and played here for 20 years, I've been able to sit on a number of nonprofit boards, but also be a recipient of some of the great work that the nonprofits are doing. And so really it's critical, I think, as we're looking at opportunities, the CBJ has a great track record of really helping people understand how they can be, how these nonprofits are serving them, what they have to offer, and the critical need that's here in order for everybody to be successful. And so it's a great cog, I guess, is part of what we do to make sure that people's needs are being met. And so, we can't have folks who are working in our companies or being successful in the work arena if they don't have everything they need to be successful on a personal front or the family front. So we will continue to seek out nonprofit type stories, and certainly as they relate to some of the editorial content that we're doing as far as our content calendar goes. And so I know we have a number of those actually earmarked coming up now, just talking about the good works that are being done right here.
Great. So an interesting question from the audience is, from your point of view, what are some of the more exciting and interesting business and economic developments on the horizon within the corridor? So is anything you're seeing? I know we talked a little bit about the casino possibly coming back. What are some other things that you are kind of looking at right now?
Well, I think it's always interesting to see development and small business development, and certainly in also understanding as we go forward and seeing how right here in the corridor you're seeing different opportunities trend as it relates to small business, those people who are looking to come out of this pandemic in a way that is going to be successful for their business. Maybe it's not a storefront anymore. Maybe it is a virtual opportunity. Looking at those different trends, I think, is going to be critical. It's always interesting too. We know we are in the fastest growing part of the state. When you're looking at a good chunk of the corridor and you see the growth and the things that are happening, I think the stories will just continue to unfold as we see more and more companies decide to expand right here. And certainly knowing that the offerings that we're going to have to do regarding whether it's restaurants or services that are going to need to support that growth, and making sure that being able to recruit, right? That's the biggest problem too, is recruiting and making sure that we've got that talented workforce. I think going forward, those are going to be some of those larger issues as that growth keeps happening.
So you answered the question about deadlines for print editions. Can you talk a little bit about if somebody wanted to be in one of the e-blast newsletters, what are the deadlines for those?
So like the AM newsletter, which usually is out by 11-ish in the morning. It just depends on the day. We're trying to look for the latest content we can get so that it's as fresh as possible. So, if we have it in our inbox that morning or even the day before. So the day before, if we get something in the afternoon, we'll earmark it then right away to make sure that it's available. If it's very specific to one of our PM topics, we'll make sure, hey, we'll reach out to each other and say, hey, we just got one in for real estate. We'll put it, in that bucket to be used right away. So we try to assign that content as soon as we get it in, so that we know that we have those opportunities to be able to use that, for the audience that is the most interested in that specific release.
Right. And the one thing I'll mention to everybody, Becky or I would be happy to talk to, if you belong to a specific group or club and you need a speaker, we'd be happy to come in and talk a little bit about the CBJ or about journalism or the corridor. And so if any of you have any interest in that, let us know. Becky, can you talk just a little bit more about our news partnership with KCRG and where you kind of see that headed?
Yeah, the wonderful thing about that, certainly having had a background and still knowing a lot of folks at KCRG, just a wonderful group of folks going forward. So on our level, I right now, basically, I'll get off this phone call and actually have a conversation with KCRG. They utilize just some topic ideas that they can use in their own newscast. So they tape little snippets. So you may have seen Adam before me, or Kathy in the interim, or me, just talking about some of the things that you can see and the trends and the things that are happening at the CBJ, the stories that we're covering. They also are seeking out, just thoughts on what we are seeing. If they have a business related story and they're looking for for the impacts in the corridor, they will seek us out as well. Again, we use that weather, some news from them. We're looking to expand our video offerings as well at the CBJ as we expand, and make sure that website is able to push out as much content as possible. So we see some synergies happening right there with the use of some shared resources and being able to use some of their video and be able to link back to them. So a lot of those partnerships is basically linking stories back and forth and making sure we're relying on each other's expertise.
There was a question about newsletters, and I think I've gotten such great feedback from our daily e-newsletters that people really, they get a lot of emails every day, but it's one of those things that they really read because the information is really strong. It's pretty concise, and it's just a great addition to our overall news content at the CBJ. Some people like it so much that they get confused that that's the only thing that we have. But obviously the print edition is really our flagship. So if you guys aren't getting our weekly CBJ every week, you're really missing out. And so the newsletters are a great mix for us, and it keeps us relevant every day. And I think those are only going to be more and more important as things continue to evolve at the CBJ. So I think that's about it. Becky, any last words or anything you want to recap on just connecting with you and your email address and those things again?
Yeah, I just want to again encourage you to continue to send those news releases to news@corridorbusiness.com. And if you have interest, it is certainly, like I said, on any topic, and you're thinking about writing something out, please seek me out as well at blg@corridorbusiness.com. Again, looking for those people who can serve as a subject matter expert on a topic. And certainly if you have something that you're talking about as far as opportunities for guest opinion. You guys all are very vital in the corridor, so we want to hear from you. And so reaching out is probably the best way you're going to be able to do that.
Well, I want to thank all of you for joining us today and engaging with the CBJ. And we are trying to keep a pulse on the things that are happening in the economic development world and in the corridor. And so Becky's going to be handling all that for us. Again, you can email her. We have 2 Beckys on staff, so if you're going to email Becky Lutgen Gardner, it's simple. It's blg@corridorbusiness.com, or you can also send it to again news@corridorbusiness.com. I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and we look forward to reaching out. And I think we maybe should do this once a year. It might be a fun thing to do, maybe in the fall as we're working on our editorial calendar, just to get input from everybody and engage with everybody as we think about how we're going to be doing the news for 2022. But look for our new website that comes out in April or May. And if you're not subscribing to the CBJ, please do so, and stay safe. And thanks for all of you joining us today.